Hey guys, it's competition time. How would you like to be interviewed on the Game Changers Experience podcast as a top thought leader and industry game changer? Well, you can. I'm offering one lucky spot to one lucky listener who'd like to come up onto the show. Now, the great thing about this show is that it's in the top 2.5% global rankings. We're in 43 different countries and we have thousands of downloads from around the world. So if you want to get your message out there in the big wide world, this is a great opportunity to do so. Now, there's a couple of things that you've got to do. Number one is you've got to leave a 5-star review on Apple or on Spotify. And then send me a screenshot or tag me. You can send me a screenshot to hello@adamstrong.net. It's hello@adamstrong.net. And also buy me a coffee. The link is below. Buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee based on the value that you get from the show personally. And then we'll be reviewing applicants over the next couple of weeks. And I'll be making an announcement on June 15th on the lucky winner. So listen, good luck and we'll see you soon. Take care.
This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game Changers Experience with myself, Adam Strong. And today we have another great show lined up, and today is no different from any other show, of course. Today we have the amazing Doug Gordon. Doug is a speaker, a radio host, he's a healer, a coach, and also a business consultant. Now, prior to that, Doug spent 21 years in the investment world and worked as an investment head for some of the largest fund managers in the world. And he grew an asset management business from $50 million and grew it to over $1.75 billion in just 6 years. He's coached and consulted with some of the largest companies in the world, such as Dell, Bank of Ireland, Salesforce, just to mention a few. He's also done some coaching and consulting with Hollywood stars and New York Times bestselling authors, just to mention a few. And today we're going to be having a really interesting conversation because, you know, Doug has got a multitude of different skill sets and got some great energy about him. We're going to talk a little bit about, interestingly enough, we're going to be talking about how he went from business guru to Buddha, right? Interestingly enough, right? So how does that work? So we're going to be talking a little bit about how he grew that portfolio. Back then, we're going to be talking about the story. But then we're going to talk about his near-death experience as well. We're going to be talking about how he got into the healing game, right? What does healing mean to him? We're also going to be talking about energy because, as you guys know, I'm really big into energy, and so we can have some really great conversations. So without further ado, Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Great to be here.
Very good, very good, awesome. So listen, interestingly enough, I want to jump straight in, if I may, because you spent 21 years in the investment world, right? And worked with some of the largest fund companies in the world, with the biggest fund managers and things like that. And, and you grew a portfolio from $50 million to 1.75 in just 6 years. I mean, that's a pretty big achievement. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. Like, tell us a little bit about, like, what did you do to make that happen, first of all?
Sure. So when I went in and worked at this particular company in 2006, and at the particular point in time, the sales weren't that good. I think generally, I always say to a lot of my salespeople when I was managing people is that activity plus knowledge equals sales. And I think the person that was in there before wasn't very active. I think he was a little bit lazy. And because of that, nothing was coming in. So what I truly believe in terms of sales, I always use an acronym quite often in terms of anything, really. It can work for anything, but it works really well in sales, is make sales. So that's mindset. And having the right mindset can really create a very much higher performance in terms of what you do, because obviously positive people produce positive results. And actually, interestingly, on that, I'll tell you, Adam, because being a stock market guy, I'm also a trained fund manager and investment advisor, and I had a look into the stock market. And it's very interesting to see that if you look at the stock market the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Easter, the day before Independence Day, and the last 2 weeks of the year in terms of the Santa rally, the stock market goes up 85% of the time. Why is that? Well, it's because people who are positive produce positive results. So that's the first thing in terms of mindset. In terms of actions, what I always make sure I do is I have a business plan in place, but I don't just put my business plan in place for the year with a target. I also make sure that I'm targeting myself for the quarter, the month, and the week. And I also am very big into visualization. And even when I was there, I would visualize myself being successful with different accounts, visualize myself having long-term relationships with people, and affirm that out loud quite often as well. I'm very much into all the mindset stuff. Secondly, client mapping. It's amazing how so many people in sales spend the wrong time with the wrong people. Whereas if you optimize your time, spending the right time, the right people, you can produce more revenue. And so I'm very much targeted down who are the biggest clients in the industry that I can approach and what can I approach them with. And that's where knowledge comes in as well. Know your client, know your product, know your industry, and match your client needs to your USPs. Very important to make sure that you know what your client is investing in terms of their portfolio. So I'll give you an example. So in the year that I did 1.75 billion, which was in 2012, I actually had one particular client, and we had, I'd already got into our business 285 million to our emerging market debt fund, which was great. But we lost the entire team bar one. And, you know, the CEO of the company said to me, he said, oh, Doug, the money's going to go. And that's a lot of money for a particular account with 285. And in the end, I went and obviously approached the company straight away, telling them before it even had gone to press what was happening, because they're a good client of ours. And I said, look, we've got one guy left. He's a very good guy. The reason why he didn't go is because he's not great at English and his communication skills aren't great. But in terms of his portfolio management, he's fantastic. So one, I showed respect and trust to the client by going to them before the market knew about it. Secondly, then I trained up the fund manager. I'm very good at training people in terms of sales skills, marketing skills, especially presentation skills. And he needed to. And I gave him a lot of knowledge about the client. But I also knew that the client, which actually is Jupiter, and they won't mind me saying who it is, Jupiter had interest in our European equity fund. And I knew in their portfolio, their overall fund portfolio, they had 12 billion. And I also knew that they had a 10% allocation to European equities, which meant they had 1.2 billion allocation there. And I knew they had 4 funds there. So I knew they had an allocation of about 300 and something thousand in that area of, European potentially, if they were to replace one of the funds with our fund. Mm-hmm. So, and I knew they were interested in our European equity fund. So I went in there, I rang them up and said, look, I know that if you move the money away, it's going to cost you a little bit in terms of capital gains tax. Whereas if you stay within our umbrella of our portfolios, and I know you like our European equity fund, you can save money in that respect. And, it looks good in terms of moving across. Anyway, we went back and I brought in not just the emerging market debt guy to repitch the business, I brought the European equity guy as well. And we won both of them. So we went for a potential loss of 285 million. And by the end of that year, actually, they put in an extra 530 million just that time.
Wow.
So it's all about, so you've got mindset, actions, knowledge, and the final bit is energy. And that's positive energy, getting into a kind of a flow state in terms of energy so that you've optimized your energy to optimize your performance. And in terms of energy, whether in sales or anything, I always went in with a sense of love for what I do and love for the clients I was serving as well. And when you have love, you have lots of vibrant energy as well.
It's really interesting, it's because you are from like the stockbroking investment world, and it's a very different language that you're using compared to what most people in the investment world use. You use the word mindset a lot and love, and they're I wouldn't say they're anti-words, but they're just words that wouldn't come up in a normal conversation. Would you agree on that?
Well, you'd be surprised this day and age, Adam. There's a lot of people actually now, I have to say, who, I was in one particular company where I was working for, and there was Reiki people in there, and, there were Reiki healers and stuff, and very much into meditation, into yoga and everything like that. So actually you find that there are a lot of people into the stuff. But in a business meeting, most people wouldn't talk about it. But I
Mm.
did. And when I did that in the business meetings, not straight away, obviously, when I got to know people after a little while, people like that because you gain trust, because they can see a little bit more of the inner you, the true you, the authentic you, rather than a salesperson, if that makes sense.
Interestingly enough, you mentioned something in your conversation where you were talking about, if you look at like Independence Day, or you look at the 2 years before the end of the year type thing, and there's this kind of surge in the markets. Now, interestingly enough, you talked about mindset. From your perspective, now, interestingly enough, would you said it was mindset or motivation? What's your connotation? Does it make any difference? I mean, they're obviously two different catalysts, if you like, but very different in their own ways. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so look, motivation comes from the word motive, which is a reason which is outside you, whereas inspiration comes from the word in spirit, which means it comes from inside of you in a sense of purpose and love, as I was talking about. People talk about purpose. I just like calling it love. So, in terms of any job, I think it's really important to have a sense of purpose and understanding. And you can create purpose in your life in 3 different ways. One is to, really love what you do, and also love adding value to other people as well. So that's one way. Secondly, you can have a look at the energetics of all the different tasks you do and how it adds value to people. So let's take the investment world, for example. So as an investment management company, we were adding value to that granny or grandpa to make sure that they could retire younger, give more to their children, their grandchildren, their favorite charity, or buy a better retirement home. So every single time that we outperform the market or, produce really good results, we were adding value to them and bettering their lives. And when you can understand that energetics in terms of what you do betters somebody's life, it gives you a sense of vitality and meaning and purpose. And then the final way of creating purpose is we all go through hardships in life, whether it be, I went through a marriage breakdown, I went through, 2 operations that went wrong, 3 years of chronic pain, waking up sometimes 10 times in the night. I went through a near-death experience, all of those, hardships. But actually, when I look at those hardships now, looking back at them, they were the best things that happened to me because they helped me grow and learn from them. And then I've utilized them to help other people in some way or form as well. So we can turn our messes into messages in some way or form and give them meaning.
Do you find that, I know that I've had conversations with stockbrokers before and people in the investment world. I know that maybe the younger generation is probably more affected than the older generation. I don't know. But because they're dealing with large amounts of money, and they have this kind of what I call the fear factor of, holy crap, I could be losing, I don't know, 9, 10 figures for my company or whatever it might be, and it's, I suppose, like you said, it's a mindset. And but how do you kind of deal with the whole kind of the money side of stuff? This whole kind of, I could potentially lose this large amount of money. And then, they have this stigma around money, or, their relationship with money and wealth. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about this, and if you've come across that regularly.
Yeah, look, risk factors are very important in any investment. And I think that, most of the all of the stockbrokers, all of the fund managers have risk strategies in place to ensure the best possible practice.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, what they're always trying to do is look for opportunities. And opportunities in terms of investments really comes down to knowledge. I mean, there are a lot of people that play momentum plays and everything like that. But really, what you need to be doing is to have really good knowledge of the individual company, the people who are working there, the products they have, and the market as well. And that way, when you have that knowledge and you can see there's an opportunity there for them to grow in some way or form, that's when you can really get a good investment for an underlying client. But it's also very important to make sure in terms of risk, which is what you're talking about in terms of fear,
right?
When you have risk, it's important to make sure that you spread your portfolio and not lay all your eggs in one basket. So there's a lot of people I hear on, we met on Clubhouse, for example, they're pushing cryptocurrency. In a general portfolio, currency would only be about 5% of the portfolio. It's, equity assets, bond assets, property assets, hedge fund assets, private equity assets, maybe gold assets. And then eventually you might have a little bit of currency and cash. But it's really, I mean, people don't realize, but 5% would be the max you'd really want, or maybe 10% max into that side of things. And you need to spread your risk right across the world, not just in European equities, not just in US equities, but right across the world. So you have diversification and more opportunities in more areas.
Do you think that the surge of cryptocurrencies over the last sort of 10 years, do you think that that's changed investors' minds and kind of it shifted that kind of 5%, what you're saying, but do you think that's kind of challenged that kind of thought process? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think cryptocurrency is a bet rather than an investment.
Lovely.
And it's based on fluctuation of prices based on supply and demand. It's based on economics, and it can be affected very, very quickly, as we've seen, by different things and different people even voicing certain things. Like, so obviously, Elon Musk voiced how he felt about cryptocurrency, and we saw the price move quite rapidly. It wouldn't work as poignantly as it did in that respect in the stock market. The stock market is more stable and is based on more fundamentals and proper investment knowledge rather than just betting. And yes, you can make a lot of money in crypto if you get in there at the right time. But if most people invested, say, in February 2009 in the stock market, they would be looking very, very happy now at their portfolio.
I'm sure they would be. Very good point. Good stuff. So tell us, because I know that, and I can't remember, because I know that we've spoken offline about it, but I can't remember the date. You had a near-death experience, which I suppose would, and the near-death experience, I don't know if that transitioned you out of the investment world to what you do into healing and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got into healing.
Yeah, sure, Adam. So 2008 obviously was a bit of a tough time for everybody in the markets, and I was working in a team. We had a hedge fund portfolio of about 3.5 billion, and unfortunately, all of that walked out the door. And that was what our most profitable part of the business. And because of that, we had to lay off quite a lot of staff. And although I was doing very well, thankfully, so I was fine, but I'm still very empathic towards other people. And I could feel the energy, and I got very stressed. And the stress led to ailment after ailment, doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, 2 operations that went wrong. And then followed by that, it was 3 years of chronic pain, sometimes waking up 10 times in the night like I was being punched in the stomach. Wow. And it was a tough time. It led to problems in my marriage, because obviously I was waking my wife up as well at the time. And that led to then marriage breakdown. And then when I thought nothing would really get any worse, in 2012, I got the norovirus, which is like a stomach bomb. And when you'd had the operations that I had, you didn't want to get the norovirus. And after 10 days of serious dehydration, I was feeling something in my heart. I was rushed to hospital. ECG said heart, blood pressure doubled, arrived into A&E, rushed down to X-ray. And on the way down to X-ray, I had my near-death experience where I was encapsulated in this amazing feeling of love, energy, and connection. Nothing like I'd ever felt before. Obviously, I came back, otherwise I would be speaking to you now. And that was, such a spiritual experience that I decided I needed to go and give something back initially. And I was going to do a church course called the Alpha Course, which Bear Grylls had done. And I went and did it. And when I turned up, obviously they were talking about Jesus. I thought, okay. And I wasn't sure if it was for me. And, I went to Sunday school and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't sure if it was for me. And I went out and asked the universe. I said, give me a sign. And 2 days later, I was running, as I used to play Premier League, National League hockey. And I was running with my dog. Dog tripped me up. Never had done it before. And then cut my hand and my knee to shreds. And on my hand, in cuts, I had 2 infinity signs either side of the letters of the cross, INRI, which I still have photos of. So at that point, I thought, okay, that's a good enough sign to go back and do the course. I did the course, had some more spiritual, weird experiences. And then at that point, I got into initially a religion, but then gradually I felt that religions are all beautiful in their own right, but they're like rivers to the sea. So the sea being God, universal energy, Allah, whatever you believe in. And I think they're all beautiful and they're all a path. And I wanted to learn more about all of them, because I feel it would be ignorant of me just to feel that there's one path to that sea when there's been so many beautiful journeys from so many beautiful people right across the world. So I started studying lots of different religions, then got into spirituality. Then I wanted to heal myself properly. So I then became a master teacher healer, learned about lots of different healing modalities. The healing turned into life coaching because of the mind-body connection. Life coaching turned into business coaching because of the 21 years in the investment world. And then people started asking me on stage to speak, and I was offered a radio show, and the rest is history.
Isn't that interesting? Well, you know, I honestly, I think that I find that fascinating. I don't know about you guys, but I find that fascinating. It's a great story, by the way, you know, and you know, it's just like it puts things into perspective. You know, I suppose I'm a little bit speechless in a way, because it's kind of like, wow, you know, I thought I had my story, but wow, we all have our own stories, though, ladies and gentlemen, right? You don't have to have this near-death experience or what Doug has gone through in order to be a superstar or have success, whatever that looks like to you. So interesting. I love it. Very cool. Very cool.
You know, Adam, you're very right, because the reason why I think I had the near-death experience is because I wasn't living my true purpose. And you could call it your own subconscious, your soul, whatever you want to call it, woke me up. And that was why. And once I woke up and I was aligned to my true sense of purpose, it was amazing how quickly my body healed. I felt much better and living a life of purpose.
Did you, just out of curiosity, was there any point within that scope, that within that kind of like that change, whatever you want to call it, did you ever feel skeptical about the whole kind of process? Did you ever kind of question, you think, hang on a minute, is this just a coincidence or what? Well, I don't know. I mean, back in the day, I mean, if it had happened to me, I would have been like, okay, this is just weird, right? I don't know. How did you react when you first kind of, you know, had these realizations?
Yeah, there's a lot more kind of woo-woo stuff that happened to me, which I won't go into. But one of the things I will say is, so not long after the near-death experience, well, maybe about a year afterwards or something like that, and I hadn't studied all the different arts of modalities of healing. My son had stepped on I was told by a psychic that I had healing ability. So my son had stepped on a very large splinter. We have a holiday home down in the south coast of Ireland, and we were down there, and he couldn't get out. We're going to have to go to hospital. The nearest hospital is about an hour away. And I just said to my then wife, I'm separated now. I said to my then wife, I said, shall I try my healing? And she laughed at me. And I thought, you know, I'm going to give it a go. So I just visualized it coming out, the splinter coming out. I visualized energy coming into the top of my head, down into my heart, along my hands, and into his feet. And did it for about 5 minutes, looked, and nothing happened. And then turned away, walked away. And within 2 minutes, my son went, and he was only 7 at the time. He said, Dad, it just came out. I didn't touch it. So at that point, I kind of thought, okay, well, there's something in this. And then my father came to me, he had a sore back, and I fixed his back. I've had people who were on medication for pain come to me, and it disappeared. And I've had some miracle other stuff. I had someone who actually with COVID, long COVID, and she actually did a video on YouTube for me. And the COVID went. So lots of different things. And even like this week, there was a lady who had a house. There was some horrific thing that happened in the house before she moved in. Some pretty horrible energy in there. And I went in, and she's just sent me a text. I actually put it on social media saying, oh my God, the house energy has completely changed. And what it is it's about turning, you know, low frequency vibration into higher frequency vibration, and basically bringing this energy in. Because let's face it, there's energy all around us, Adam. I'm speaking into the computer, which is going up to the satellite, which is going down to you and going into your ear. So there's a vibration of energy all around us at every single time. There's 5 billion phones on the planet at the moment, and 8 billion people. So with that vibration and that understanding of that energy around us, we can hone into that energy that's all around us and bring certain energies into us. And if you have a slice, dice, or bang within your body that's out of sync, because let's face it, pain is just vibration that's out of sync, out of its normal vibration. It sends a message to your brain saying, look, there's something wrong here because it's not vibrating in the normal way. And then what I can do, and many people can do, and actually you can do it yourself if you connect and do this appropriately, is bring energy down in to myself, bring it into yourself or whoever, and resync the energy that's out of a vibration back into vibration. Now, sometimes it happens instantly in terms of the healing. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So, for example, there was a lady who was getting migraines. She came for a healing with me, And nothing helped for maybe a week to, I think it was 3 weeks before suddenly they just dissipated, and she'd had them for 2 years. So it's about integration into the body. And obviously what I try and do is I align people's energies back into the way it should be, and then they self-heal themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I suppose that was that was just about to answer my question, because can people actually self-heal? I suppose you've answered the question, really. Yes, they can. So, okay, interestingly enough, and I mean, you talked a lot about vibrational energy, and vibrations, you talked a little bit about how to heal yourself. And this is really juicy stuff, by the way. I love it. And I'm really big into energy, as you know. So let's talk a little bit about this energy field, if you like, right? What you know, in terms of energy. So say some of our listeners, for example, okay, and you know, they want to achieve success, whatever success wants to look like for them. But you know that there's a block, whatever that block looks like. How can we use energy as an advantage to achieve and get those breakthroughs? What is it that we need to do as people, as human beings? What is it? Where is it that we need to start in terms of the healing process?
Okay, well, look, as I said earlier, one of the first best things you can do is actually make sure that you're following a life of purpose. Because let's face it, if you're doing something that you don't like, let's take it, right. I often use this when I start my speeches. A lot of people in jobs they don't really enjoy, the alarm goes off, you know, they slap snooze a few times, eventually drag themselves to the side of the bed, they drag themselves into the office, they look at the screen and go, what the bleep am I doing here all day, right?
Groundhog Day.
And yet, that same person might be packing till 3 a.m. because they're going on holiday the next day, getting up at 6 a.m., they spring out of bed, spring into a taxi, spring into the airplane, spring into the swimming pool with loads of energy, because they're aligned to something they love doing. So the first thing is to make sure that you've got a real sense of meaning for what you do. And then you'll find that you'll have a lot more vitality and a lot more motivation or inspiration to get out of bed and really do something and make it happen. Now, having said that, we also sometimes play parental programs, and those parental programs can cause trigger points in terms of emotional intelligence. And the most successful people in leadership and business are the most emotionally intelligent, because they're self-aware, they're self-regulated, they have empathy and compassion towards their teams and their clients. They also have very good motivation and inspirational skills, and they're very good at communication skills as well, which are all parts of emotional intelligence. So it's very important that you work on them in a self-awareness state every single day. And I still have to every single day. Everybody does. You know, what are the thoughts you're having? What are the habits and behaviors you're putting in place? And what are the emotions or feelings you're having? Analyze them, look at them, and think, what could I have thought best in those interactions, including with your own self? What could I have behaved like best? And how could I have felt best in order to implement that change within you in terms of awareness? Now, on top of that, though, you know, in terms of, if you want to take something in terms of the energetics, because if you have that awareness, you can then, through awareness and acceptance of these trigger points that are in you, you can then let go of them. But then in terms of seeding a new neuroplastic change in terms of energy within the subconscious or the brain, you can then use positive affirmations of the opposite. So let's just say, for example, you're not actively listening enough to your spouse or your colleagues, or, you know, often we get these situations where, you know, someone's talking and you're just thinking about what you're going to say next rather than what actually really listening to them. And so what you can do is put a positive affirmation in place saying that I'm always listening, I'm always actively listening with love to understand the other person's perspective. And whatever it might be. So say, for example, if you didn't feel you're worthy of success, you say, I am worthy of success. So use I am statements. And then I always say to people, look, it takes at least 21 days to implement a habit into your psyche. So sit in front of the mirror or with a coach if you can, put your hand in your heart, look at yourself eye to eye in the mirror and say those loudly out loud in front of the mirror in order to implement neuroplastic change. Because by voicing it out loud, it triggers 3 parts of the brain, including the subconscious, which means it sends the message back in there and implements accountability with your own self as well. So it's very powerful if you do these. And actually affirmations are very, very powerful because, again, they're energy. And as we said earlier on, really, everything is energy. Thoughts are energy, speech is energy. Thoughts lead to speech, speech leads to actions, actions leads to habits, and habits leads to destiny. So start with positive thought, end with a positive destiny. And if you go around, and I often do this, voicing out loud, like, you know, I am feeling fantastic today. I'm attracting positive abundance, love, and joy into my life every day. And you say these regularly, it's incredible. And even better if you write them down. And I've experimented with this because what I do is I generally write down I am grateful statements for what I have. So I would write down, I am grateful for my friends, my family, my house, my girlfriend, my food, my money, my car, my dog, everything, every day. And then I write, I am grateful statements for what I have. But I very much make sure that I put my name in it as well, because I believe in reincarnation. I don't want to create it in a future life. I want to create it now. So I always go, I am grateful to the universe that I, Douglas Gordon, am an inspirational speaker, speaking all around the world, touching people's hearts, changing their lives, and being paid for it as well. So make sure you're specific about your I am grateful statement as well. And I do this, and I've tested it, Adam. It's funny. I've done it, and then I've stopped for a while on purpose to see if there's any change. And I found quite often, and actually I did this recently, I found suddenly there was like a bit of stagnancy in new clients and money and all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly I'll start doing it again. And literally I started doing it again, literally a couple of weeks ago, just to test it out. And suddenly the flow of new clients, positivity, new speaking engagements, everything like that is amazing. I mean, like, this is like the 4th podcast I've done in a week. And, it just shows you this, what's happening at the moment. So I always say to people, write them down. People say, oh, it sounds a bit pointless. I can't be bothered. Well, why do you think they used to give kids in school, when they did something wrong, lines? Because what it does is it cements the idea, the knowledge, the goal into your subconscious. So you're putting yourself into the energy. So for example, I've just finished writing a book called High Performance Success Without Stress, How to Optimize Your Energy to Optimize Your Life, right? I every day write down, I am grateful that I am an author, having sold 100 million copies of my book to touch 100 million hearts. So you also make the I am grateful goal or statement about adding value to people's lives. It's interesting. I had John Mattone on my radio show, and he was, what's his name? Steve Jobs's coach, executive coach. And 20 years ago, he wrote a book on sales and marketing and leadership. And he had the intention of putting the book out and getting gigs to get on stage and make money. He didn't sell a book. 10 years later, he read his book and thought to himself, you know what, this could add value just to one, young executive who wants to get into sales and leadership. I'm going to put it out there with a sense of love and giving. Anyway, put it out again. He did change the cover, but he became a New York Times bestseller without any funny kind of tweaks. And Steve Jobs read the book, brought him in, and made him his executive coach. And now he speaks all over the world. So he had that intention of adding value to people as well. So make sure you do that. And it's really powerful because you get into the energy, you're showing the universe that you're adding value to people, and you've got that intention as well. And it's amazing. One thing I will say is, a lot of people I know do I'm grateful statements. They say, I'm grateful I'm a best-selling author. And they become a best-selling author for a week because they buy all their own books or they tweak it or whatever it might be. This is why I say I am grateful that I'm a best-selling author, having sold 100 million books to touch 100 million hearts to change their lives. So that's the kind of...
I got a question about the affirmations, because I've got my affirmations written down here, by the way. There we go. So I've got 10 affirmations that I've created for myself. But and maybe this is the same for some of our listeners. It's all very well having affirmations, read them out loud, the routine that you've created that you just mentioned. However, what if you have in the back of your mind, not limitations, but kind of doubts? And how does those doubts then manifest into reality as such? How do you kind of clear the doubt first before going all in with the affirmation? I mean, what's your thoughts about this? Have you ever experienced this at all?
Yeah, look, we all have negative thoughts, right? We all have doubts. It's a bit like, I think Brian Tracy talked about it. It's like having a garden, and you can plant loads of beautiful flowers, which are the positives, but you'll always get some weeds as well. One of the things that I actually give this to kids, and you might like this, a bit of fun, I've done it myself as well, is that I believe that when we come down this planet, we come down as being of light, and all we think about is positive things, really. And what happens is that our mums, our dads, our brothers, our sisters, cousins, whatever, they come and piss us off in some way or form. So then when you get to about 5 years of age, suddenly you start developing a little bit of resentment, anger, guilt, whatever it might be. And that's when it really starts to kick in. So I always say to people, come down to this planet as being a light. So anything that comes in terms of negative, in terms of darkness, comes from outside of you. So based on that premise, then, you're a being of light. So if you get a negative thought, think of it as like a dementia in, Harry Potter, one of those ghosts, those eerie ghosts that when they come close, you feel a bit awful. So when you get a negative thought, you acknowledge an awareness to negative thought. So you say to the negative thought, you don't have to say this out loud, but I'm just doing it for some people. So you say to the negative thought, I'm a being of light. I don't get negative thoughts. If you're in my mind, it must mean that you're coming from somewhere else. And actually, you see me as the light, so you want to go to the light. So I'm going to send you up to the light. So in your mind's eye, visualize the dementia or the negative thought going to the light. And when you can see it up there in the light, then say to the dementia, say, now that you're near light, you must only have positive thoughts. So give me a positive thought. And then you receive or have the expectation or intention of getting a positive thought. Once you have that, then you go, thank you, and send it on its way. And what you're doing there, and this is great for kids because I do a lot of mental wellness work, is what you're actually doing there is giving them a gamified version of turning negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And you can actually add one layer to that, is to say, count them up, and you can work out how many points you get by the end of the day as well. So it's a really good way of just, changing and reframing those negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And actually, the other way you can do it all the time as well is every single time you get a negative thought, is go, and I always believe that everything that happens to you is happening to you, not against you. For you, not against you. And by what I mean by that is if you look at every hardship in life and look at it and ask, what am I learning here? How can I grow from this? And what can I utilize here to help other people in some way or form? And that's what happens. And, if you keep doing that and keep seeding those affirmations and writing them out as well, eventually, you'll just implant these positive thoughts into your head. Don't get me wrong. We all sometimes get doubts. We all sometimes get negative thoughts, but it's just practice makes perfect. It's like going to the gym. If you don't pump that iron and pump it regularly, you can't just do it for a couple of days, then you'll build up the muscle.
Very true. Very true. Some good points. So, interestingly enough, one of your clients, Dell Computers, and I'd love to know how you landed that gig, because I know that there are some of our listeners here that are like executive coaches or consultants out there, and they're going after the elephants. Yet we all know it's very difficult to take down elephants, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you just have to go hunt rabbits, as I like to call it. But tell us a little bit more about how you went and how you acquired Dell as a client, I suppose.
Well, the first thing I'll say is, I used to head up sales and marketing C-level for Ireland's biggest fund manager, basically. So that kind of helps.
Got it.
So that was well recognized. And I also have worked, as you said, for people like, Fidelity, Lazard, Columbia Threadneedle, HSBC, Aviva, on the investment side. So these are some of the biggest companies in the world. So preferably for a lot of big companies in terms of executive coaching, they prefer people who've been in the corporate world.
Yeah.
So that obviously is an added advantage for me. But at the time, I had a radio show. I still have a radio show, which, it goes out to 2 million people, gets about 140,000 live listeners every week. And I was linked in with the president of Dell in Ireland, who's one down from Michael Dell. And he spoke at a particular event, and I'd seen him before. And then I also saw that he got promoted. Well, it was a promotion from looking after 120,000 people to 180 or something like that, whatever. And I just sent him a message on LinkedIn. I think everybody is listening. LinkedIn, I think, is the most authentic platform and the best platform for me anyway, in terms of getting new clients. And the reason being is because you can utilize LinkedIn recommendations from past clients that you've worked with to showcase and prove the results. So I said to this particular guy, I'm not going to name him, but I said to the president of Dell, I said, congratulations. Let's call him Bob. It's not his name, but let's call him Bob. I said, Bob, congratulations on your promotion. I saw you speaking a while ago. I thought you were fantastic. I spoke recently at the National Workplace Wellbeing Conference. Here's the video of it. If you ever want to have a chat, how I can add value to your business, let me know. And he came back to me within less than, maybe a couple of hours. And he said, Doug, I'd be delighted to meet with you. Here's my details of my secretary, get in touch. So within 2 weeks, I had a meeting with him. But before I went in, I made sure that I did my knowledge in terms of research about him. So I found out that he was the president of the American Chamber of Commerce. And I've spoken at the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, the European Chamber of Commerce, the London Chamber of Commerce, the Galway Chamber of Commerce, and the Tanzanian Chamber of Commerce. So I was able to say to him when I actually met him, this obviously. The second thing was I saw that he was into charity, and he was actually on the committee of the Special Olympics Committee. And I've been an ambassador for the Wooden Spoon charity, which it's the Six Nations charity actually that helps mentally and physically handicapped children. Also, he's a rugby fan. I'm a rugby fan.
Nice.
He's a Munster fan. I'm a Leinster fan. But one of Munster's greatest players is Frankie Sheen, and he played for Ireland as well. And he's a friend of mine. So I had lots of links. So when I went in there, I also went in there, and I said this is really important. When you go and meet somebody, never go in with the intention, the energy, and that's why it's very important to get into that mindset, that energy that you want to make a sale. I went in there with the pure energy of making him my friend. So, because that way, if anyone ever met him and said, what do you think of Doug Gordon? He said, I was a really nice guy, good guy, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I went in with that intention, making him my friend. And I went in and I said, Bob, I see you're the president of the American Chamber of Commerce. I've spoken to all these different other Chamber of Commerces. If I can add value in terms of the talk anytime, it'd be my pleasure. So one, I showed that I'd done my research. And then secondly, straight away, I was offering him something to add value to him. Secondly, then, as well, I mentioned his charity, something that was close to his heart in terms of the Special Olympics. Normally, people have somebody they know who's in that circumstance as well. So I said to him, look, I'm also in a very similar type of charity. If I can collaborate and help with you in any way, let me know. Again, connection to the heart, very, very important. Don't just connect through the head, connect through the heart. So that was the second thing. And then we talked a little bit about rugby, children, everything like that. And at that point, he was going to bring me into the canteen, but he then brought me up to his office. And at that point, we had a little bit more small chat. And the next point is very important. I then asked him, I said, Bob, is it okay if I tell you a little about my business? Because what I was doing there was engaging his subconscious. Because if I started ranting on, saying how great I was and all this kind of stuff, he might have switched off. Whereas because I've asked permission to sell, then he opens up and says yes. So that was the first thing. And then I never once mentioned how good I was, how good my company was, or how good my consultants were. Instead, I just showcased LinkedIn recommendations that linked in terms of the technology industry to show like CEOs and C-level execs that I'd worked with, and told him what I'd done with them. And that was it. So I utilized those, showed him what I'd done with them. And then at that point, at the end of it, I said, look, if I can help you in terms of coaching, consulting, or corporate training, it'd be my pleasure. And he said, absolutely, Doug, I'm going to help you out. And then I just walked out of the room, thanked him, obviously, walked out of the room, got into the car, drove around literally 5 minutes into the nearest garage, and followed up straight away. Sent him an email saying, thank you so much for your time. I just want to say if I can help you in corporate training, coaching. And he literally came back to me. This guy looks after 180,000 people, came back to me within less than half an hour saying, CCing all the HR people, Doug, this is John, this is Sheila, this is so-and-so. These are all to do with corporate training. And now I got in. So it's all about the follow-up. It's all about being in their energy. It's all about adding value. It's all about becoming friends with them for long-term, not just for the short-term sale.
It's really interesting, right? So I had an experience recently, Doug. I met a client who had, who basically was an attendee of one of my speaking gigs. And during our conversation, we kind of got to know each other, etc. And the thing is, halfway through, she's like, "Hey, can you be my coach?" And I'm like, "No." And I told her the reason being, I was like, for me to really get to know, I need to get to know you more and become friends with you and really find out what you're about. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What's your perspective on this? Because I know that some people would disagree with our conversation with regards to, why didn't you just go in for the sale and just sell her for your highest package? I could have done that, but I felt it was just completely not me. What's your take on that?
Well, I think what you did, Adam, was great, because what you're doing is just showing care and consideration and empathy towards the client rather than just looking to go for the quick sale.
Yeah.
And by understanding what her needs are before you pushing your own opinions and everything on her, it allows you to get a much better idea of whether or not you can truly help her. And do you know what? If you can't in that situation, but you know somebody who can, then you know what? Twofold. One, you'll get utmost respect from that client, and she might recommend somebody else for you because she'll go, what a nice guy. And secondly, you might get a recommendation from the person that you recommend her to as well. So you might not get a client, but you might get someone who sells you for you as well, which is,
a good point.
Very
It's a good point. Well, that was cool, and that was completely random, by the way. It was just kind of an experience that I had recently, and so I just thought I just wanted to put that out there anyway. So I know we're coming towards the end of our our conversation and stuff like that. And you're working on numerous things and stuff like that. But tell us a little bit more about what you're working on right now, and how can people get back? What's the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Sure, thanks, Adam. So I've just finished a book called High Performance Success Without Stress, as I mentioned early on. It's all about optimizing your energy to optimize your performance in life. It's got testimonies from 3 New York Times bestsellers, a Hollywood Star Wars actress, and 3 TV celebrities as well. Actually, and a Guinness Book of Record holder. He actually completed the 7 summits of the world twice first. So some really good recommendations there. People who've read, a good bit of the book, or just know me very well from speaking on stage alongside of them. And so that book's just come out, and I think it's really going to add value to people's lives in terms of helping you find purpose, being able to clear out anything past crap that you're holding on to in terms of baggage, helping you optimize energy, utilize energy, manipulate energy, even in a good way, not a bad way. And then on top of that, get yourself into the best flow state, energetic state, so you can get more done, less time with less stress. And there's a little bit about goal setting and relationships in there as well. And a little bit about how you can get into the best state physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So that's that. But there's also a online course version of that, which is out already, which is at https://training.dougdgordon.com. And you can go on there, and that normally costs $1,000, but at the moment it's down at $200. And it has all my best ideas and all the tips that I have from working with some of the best people in the world in terms of C-level execs, sports stars, actors, actresses, and many others as well. So that's that. And you can get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably one of the best ways to get Doug Gordon at DNS Performance Optimization Limited. Or you can get me on my website, which is, I've got 3 websites. There's dougdgordon.com, which is just me. There's DS, as in Delta Sierra, Deliver and Serve, dsperformanceoptimization.com, and also bodyhealthandsoul.com. I have 3 different ones. One for corporate, which is the DNS Performance Optimization, one for speaking gigs for myself, and then one for healing and everything like that as well.
Very cool. And for you guys that are probably freaking out right now, thinking that you need to rewind this recording over and over again just to get that information, we're going to put the links below, so make it your life a lot easier. So that's all good. So listen, I hope that you've enjoyed today's show. Now, I don't ask too much for any of our listeners, actually. I just hope that you enjoy it, first of all. But secondly, if you do enjoy it, one of my big goals is to get more reviews for this podcast. So if you enjoy some of our podcasts and you listen to some of our regular shows, please do leave a review, either on Apple or Spotify, whichever you prefer. And also what you can do, if you've got like a book full of notes like I've just taken, you can also click on the link, which is called Buy Me a Coffee. That's Buy Me a Coffee. The link is below. And again, whatever value you get from today's podcast, we're going to be reinvesting, and we're going to be taking it to the next level, whatever that looks like to you. But honestly, we've got some big plans for the show. So listen, from me and Doug, hope that you've enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you again back on here on the Game Changers Experience. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Cheers. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode on the Game Changers Experience. I would be gratefully appreciated if you could leave a good or a bad review. It doesn't matter, 1 or a 5-star review, whichever you prefer, on any of the platforms, whether it be on Apple, whether it be on Spotify, Podchaser, etc. And please leave a testimonial or review about our podcast. And if you have enjoyed our podcast, then I look forward to seeing you on the next Game Changers Experience. Take care, see you soon, etc. And please leave a testimonial or review about our podcast. And if you have enjoyed our podcast, then I look forward to seeing you on the next Game Changers Experience. Take care, see you soon.